Hi, and welcome to another episode of All Around Azure. I'll be your host today. My name is Jason Hand. You can find me on Twitter at Jason Hand. And really excited for today's episode. Got one of my good friends and colleagues, Cassie, who's going to be talking to us about NoSQL for relational thinkers, a little bit of Cosmos DB, and some other neat stuff. We're going to be going through a Learn module a little bit and all kinds of cool stuff. So without further ado, let's introduce Cassie. Everybody say hello to Cassie. Hi, Cassie.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. How are you?
Good.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show. I've been looking forward to this all week. We've been having a couple different discussions about what we're going to talk about and taking a few trips down memory lane. What are we going to talk about? What are you going to show us off today?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about NoSQL and Cosmos DB, like you were saying. And I come from a .NET background and obviously do a lot of SQL there and relational databases and thinking about all of that. But then obviously NoSQL is becoming more and more popular. So lately I've been kind of like, I want to learn a little bit more of that. So I've learned a little bit, but I'm still very much like kind of learning. So I thought we could go through this Learn module and kind of learn more together.
Yeah, with the dogs.
With the dogs. He's growling at something. I don't know what. Yeah,
Yeah, these.
sorry.
We've talked about how fun some of these Learn modules are, and I think this is a great idea. Kind of stepping through, give people an idea on what they're all about. Some of them are a little bit more on the technical side, which I would say the one that we're going to go through probably falls more in line with that. Others are a little bit more of an overview, but in general, they've been fantastic to go through and play around with. So,
Yeah,
what's
definitely.
well, so you tell us a little bit more about the Learn module that you've already kind of looked at that we're going to go through.
Yeah. So basically, it's an introduction to NoSQL and the CLIs that we have to use with the Cosmos DB. So you use Visual Studio Code, and there's the Azure plugin, and so you can actually create your Cosmos DB right in Visual Studio Code. And if you're not familiar with Visual Studio Code, it's a really lightweight IDE. So like coming from C Sharp, I use Visual Studio like all the time. And then VS Code came out and I'm like, that's cool. But then I didn't really think about it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And now like the more I use it, the more I love it because it is just so lightweight. And I still use Visual Studio like probably more for C Sharp, but if you're doing like for JavaScript and Python, and with this module, we're going to be using VS Code still, even though we're going to be doing
With all the
C Sharp. So
extensions, it's such a powerful
I
little
know.
tool. It's like very
Yeah.
stripped down. If you just download it and fire it up, there's not much to it, but it's already super cool and fast. And then you start adding all these extensions in, and yeah, I've converted
Mhm.
myself.
Yeah,
Cool.
for sure.
Well, I'm going to switch over to your screen, and you can start showing us a little bit about the things we're going to talk about today.
Awesome. I'm gonna
Let's go to this one instead.
get. I don't know why this chat isn't showing over here for me. There we go.
Speaking of chat, I will say also to those on the stream, please, if you've got any questions, just drop them into chat. I'll be keeping an eye on that for Cassie. And if there's any links that we want to share with you, Cassie will be sharing those with me, and I'll drop those into chat too. So by all means, ask us any questions. We'll stop and try to answer them.
Or
Back to you,
Google them
Cassie.
together, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the fun of these shows is we're not really winging it because there's been quite a bit of preparation, but you just don't know how it's all going to work out.
Yeah,
The fun,
definitely.
the fun of live.
Yes. Cool. So like one of the things that I do when I start to like learn about something new is I go to docs, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
there's so much information there. So between like the learn module and docs, um, that's kind of where I started with this. And then sometimes I like to think of a problem I want to solve too, and then see like how to start solving that and how to do that. How would my data look in a NoSQL database versus a relational database, right? And it turns out pretty different, which we'll see as we go. How many people on here have done NoSQL? If you want to say so in the chat, and like, or how many people are used to like relational databases? You don't have to say if you don't want to, but I'm curious if there's anyone there that's like new to it, kind of like I was.
Hmm.
Okay, we're shy so far. That's
I'll keep
okay.
an eye.
Okay. Um, okay, so high throughput. These are some of the things of like this particular doc goes through like when you're thinking about SQL and relational versus NoSQL. And like this is obviously when you have your ID that goes to your order details and you join the tables together, and then that's how you get that relationship, right? Hence the relational database. But with like NoSQL, it's JSON and it's just nested as a single document. And so that's like one of the first things you have to think about is that you don't just like throw out the idea of like the columns and tables and relationships. Because that's like for me, when I started thinking this, I was still trying to model my data like a relational database. And so I was still putting like, primary keys and what's the other key? I'm forgetting, the
Primary, secondary key.
Secondary key, is that what it is?
Yeah.
See,
Got to think back. This is how we started talking about this, and it led us back to, oh my gosh, do you remember using Access and like writing entire solutions that held up like one big part of a business on this like janky Access Visual Basic monstrosity?
My first real database that I created was in Access, and then never again. But
we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Access, though. I know that.
Right? And it gave you, and I think it still does, it gives you like this graphical UI. So for like, as we're calling them, the citizen developers, you can go in and like think about it. Like, honestly, I was thinking about like Excel when I first made my first database in Access. And then you can just like drag and drop your objects and like, yeah. So now I don't really want to use it ever. But at the time, and for citizen developers, like it's a cool tool. And so that was like how, and it's kind of like I tend to talk about like gateway development sometimes, things that like get you started and get you thinking. And so I think that it's kind of a cool gateway thing, but it is still very useful. No hate on Access. But yeah, so, and I really love databases. I do a lot with data with AI stuff as well. So like I focus actually more on AI now than I do on, .NET development. So that was another thing that I thought would be fun talking about this, because I need an excuse to play with some databases. Okay, so let's look through here. So that's kind of the one thing is like throw out the tables and the data types and all of that. Just throw it all out of your mind.
Hey, real quick, Cassie, so I can share this link with everybody. Will you drop into our chat your alias so I can build a link for everybody?
Yeah, my like.
Just the one we use
Microsoft
for
one, right?
the links. Yeah, exactly.
It is Cassie B, and it is because I love Cardi B, to be honest. That is literally why. So the other thing that when I started thinking about like, do we have a little minute to talk about Cardi B? Because we can if you want.
I'm down. I'm totally down for that. Lay it on.
Are you a fan?
Yeah. Well, I'm not so much. I mean, I like it. Yeah. I just don't ask me what songs or like any song titles. But yeah, what I've heard I liked.
Yeah, me too. I think she's fun. Okay. So then the other thing that when I started thinking about NoSQL is I only actually was thinking about like document DB. When I started going into this, and like there are all these different like kinds of document DBs, and with Cosmos DB you can actually choose which one you want. Like Cosmos isn't only document DB, which was another like learning that I had as I started kind of reading through this doc. Is there's graph and there's key value. So you can use Gremlin graph within it, and then you can have the SQL Core API. So the thing that I liked about this is like, oh, I can still query it kind of the same way, like all that times learning SQL and joins and all of that. Like you can still kind of like use that comfortably, but there's a lot of new things that are added and features. And then obviously there's the fluid schema. So like you're not statically defining your columns with relational databases when you're figuring out what you need, or somebody needs a column added, or the data type is wrong and you get an error. You don't have to even like think about any of that, which is so that part's kind of cool, kind of scary. At first I was like, that sounds dangerous, but and that's the other thing is like that I learned as I was going through is it's not always the right solution. Like NoSQL isn't always the right solution. It depends on what you're building and what you need.
It did feel like the wild, wild west for me. I was like, how does this work? Like, is this okay? I don't know if this feels right.
I can just put anything there?
Like I'm generally okay just accepting that technology has surpassed my ability to understand it and just go with it. But this one was actually, I don't know. It felt like magic, or I was breaking the rules.
It's breaking the rules because it's like there are no rules. I mean, you have to have a partition key, and that's like it. So yeah, so like this particular order could have no order details. Like it might just be the order, and then another one would have order details, and then this one maybe it had an additional property. And so the thing that's like cool about that when I think about it is you think about how like databases grow and you have these different properties and you have to like backfill information if you want to have a required field, or like there's a lot of like work maintaining a relational database, and like it seems like all of that work goes away in this.
We can go work on other things.
Yeah. What was the thing that you said too? You're like, it gives the power back to like the developer or something.
Yeah, it puts the power of creating and managing some of the database stuff now in teams that have a little bit of both, where they have people who strictly work on DBA type of things, and so those who strictly work on devs. It's kind of converging a little bit there.
It is.
But not in like a way that's uncomfortable, because this is JSON. Like a lot of it's things we're already working with.
Definitely, it is.
Because everything's now, because it's all text, it's just like code,
Yeah, definitely. So I think that part of it makes it feel like less scary too, because it's not like you're still using SQL queries. You most likely used JSON, I would assume, unless you're a DBA and you really just live in the database. Even then, I feel like at some point you would have had to use it.
Right.
So yeah, using some of these very common things. Okay. So that was kind of the first doc I looked at, and it was like, okay, this is kind of making sense. And then, is this the same one? Choosing the right data store. Okay, so my dog, I don't know if you can hear the door, but there's two doors to my office, and one of them's closed and one of them's open. And my dog walked in the other one and is now stuck because she's trying to get out the other door. And she doesn't realize that she can just use the other door again. So you might hear her whine a little bit. Hopefully she figures it out.
Bring her over.
That, or I might have to go open the door for her.
It is not out of the question that my cat won't make a surprise visit to my lap during this.
So, and she's still standing. Okay, I'll just, 1 second. My poor dog.
Go for it.
Okay, I opened the door so she's no longer trapped, but then I figured since she caused this, she needs to come say hi.
Let's switch back. What's her name?
This is Sophie.
Sophie.
She's a single door dog. She can't figure out the two-door thing. So.
Well, Sophie, we're all struggling lately.
All right. She had a constraint. Had to make some data jokes, right?
Yeah. Is that like a two-factor joke too?
All right, she's now free. The doors are open. Okay, so choosing the right data store. Oh, we kind of talked about that. Like when you're starting to design an application, like what should you use? And so I kind of was looking through here and thinking about, how you would decide which one. So we'll paste, or Jason will give you these links as well, so you can kind of read through it and think about it. But I have not played with graph databases yet, and I feel like that's something I need to play with at some point too. Have you played with graph databases at all?
No, not a whole lot. I started. No, what was the first one that came out?
The first graph one?
Yeah.
Graph. Well, I know there's
GraphQL.
GraphQL.
Yeah, GraphQL is kind of. Yeah, that's the one I don't know if is that a graph database? That's kind of the first one I remember thinking, I
thought it was like a way to query, but let's look it up because I don't even know.
Okay.
Yeah, data query and manipulation language. Right. So.
Yeah. No, I've played with Microsoft Graph. That's super cool.
Yeah.
For those pointing out in chat that my audio is only on the left channel, I've discovered that as well. And I think it's due to the fact that I rearranged my whole office and I don't have all my audio stuff. Should be like plugged into this board, coming into a single feed. So unfortunately, it's probably just going to have to be that way for this recording. So sorry for those who are listening through headphones and you only hear me in your left ear.
That's interesting. You're coming through both mine.
I noticed it when I did a tech check earlier, and I just did a quick recording and went back and listened to it. So you probably, I thought it could have been just on my end. It might be a little easier to notice in headphones, but
it's good on mine. Okay. But mine's also going through a preamp, and so maybe it's splitting it.
That could be. Well, apologies to those who have to put up with the left side, but we'll get it fixed for the next one. And thank you for pointing it out.
Cool. So yeah, that's just another way to think about when you're going to go create a database. Just because we're going to play with Cosmos DB and the document DB with the SQL API, it's just kind of what we want to play with today. But sometimes people get very there's only one true way to store your data, or one true language. And you know what? It's all good.
That's what we should have done. We should have had a DBA on. Maybe we can do that next time.
That would be really fun. I would love to hear a DBA's perspective and expertise.
Yeah. Well, we already know we're going to do another one of these. Next time it's going to be more music focused, which I'm already looking forward to.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited to continue working on that one.
Yeah, but we'll have lots of opportunities for these, so we'll come back. Keep the ideas stored somewhere.
Maybe we'll use some Cardi B music when we do our data processing.
Well, you'd have to probably sing it and change the lyrics a little bit.
There's clean versions. We find
yeah, but it might break copyright.
That's right. So you have to do parodies.
We'd get muted.
It's true.
That's okay, though.
Good point.
We still have, the DMCA would go for us. But it would still be, I wonder if the captions would still be there. I guess if people just wanted to rock along to their own Cardi B while they're reading your captions. Well,
and I wonder what it would be. So we'd be doing data visualization because it'll be AI, and so we'll be doing how you can process and view your wave form in your spectrogram, and so I feel you could grab one and visualize it without. I think it's as long as you don't play it, then it would be fine. Maybe so we could maybe do some classification or something with Cardi B music. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, we'll figure that out. Back to databases.
Yes, back to databases. Sorry. If you start talking about music, I could just go on.
We'll take this over to my channel after this is over. We can just talk about music all day.
Yes. And then we'll break out our
By the way, both of us do have our own channels. You should go follow Cassie on Twitch at Cassie Breviu, of course, right? And I wasn't so lucky. I'm not just Jason Hand. I had to put the 2-4 at the end of it. So go check those out. I haven't streamed in a while. I've been so focused on just this show here, which has been great. Except for when I keep slowing down my guests and don't let them work. Sorry about that.
It's good. It's all good. Yeah, I tend to stream when I'm working on a VR project right now. It's a version of the classic game Snake, a 3D VR Snake game. So I tend to stream when I build that out. It's kind of my fun side project that I've been working on. Excellent. On my channel.
Yeah, cool. So I've got a few things.
Don't expect data on my channel.
I know the stuff I do over on mine has been way different too.
What are you doing on yours lately?
I haven't done anything in a long time, but originally it was I was going through and playing around with the Azure Static Web Apps because that was new at that time, and I was trying to learn it. Did some command line tips, I think, one time. I don't know, just random stuff, kind of kicking the tires on Twitch, getting the feel for this streaming stuff.
So somebody asked, what are we doing? And that is a good question. What are we doing? So we are looking at how to work with Cosmos DB and kind of starting to get an introduction to NoSQL databases and specifically document databases using the SQL API in Cosmos DB. And if you're not familiar with Cosmos DB, that is an Azure service that we're going to be using.
And so far, we've only just made a vague attempt at trying to understand the black magic of NoSQL.
Yes.
And a few other stories.
Exactly. So, and then we're going to be going through this Learn module here. And so what this Learn module is actually going to do is we're going to go through Visual Studio Code, and you can see how you can create stuff there, or create your like database and the kind of integration with Azure. And then we'll go through and work with the .NET SDK to build a simple Cosmos DB, or NoSQL document database.
Sweet.
So I'm just going to go in here, and I'm like, I already created the database, but if you are familiar with Azure, you would go in there, create resource, and search for the resource that you want to create, and then hit create, right? Mm-hmm. So you can also do it through the Visual Studio Code plugin as well. So if you go into like the prereqs for this, it'll have all the prereqs that you would need. So after we do this, I recommend definitely going through it and doing it yourself, because then you can kind of like, I feel like it kind of cements the information in your brain that way.
Plus you get all the points.
Yes, there's all the gamification.
It's all gamified, yeah.
I would forget that, but it's really cool. I should see how I'm doing. But yeah, and like it'd be cool too. We can sometimes people do different challenges within the Learn platform. So like they'll have like a collection, and then there's like sometimes prizes. It depends. Those are usually tied to like different events. But yeah, right. There's still the gamification of like how many you've completed and all of that built in. So here's like just a little GIF of how I would do it through Visual Studio Code. I'm not going to do it because I already created my database or not my database, my resource. Yeah. We'll create the database in the customers collections through the CLI. But I just want to show the little GIF so you can see how you would do that. But I'm just going to have to skip over that part. Okay, so now we need to make a directory. Call this Azure NoSQL. And then, I don't know what to call it. I'm just making this up, but it sounds good to me. Maybe it should have been Azure Cosmos. That might have been better. Should I redo it? And then we're going to be using the .NET console or .NET CLI to create a new console application. So, and I guess I should say, I think that's good enough to see. I have it up over here on the side so I can see if it looks good on mine, but if anybody needs anything bigger, or please do let me know. So then I'm just going to go ahead and run that. And this is my Windows console terminal. So I have different profiles, and I have it. Yeah,
you're supposed to have a pretty background, pretty awesome background.
Thanks.
I like to use. Is there a picture in it? I like the coloring.
There is. It's actually just like one of the like standard ones, I think. And then it changes. You know how like the different like standard Microsoft backgrounds or like Windows backgrounds change, and then it will change also your like colors of different things to match whatever the theme color is.
That's right. Forgot about that.
It goes well with my pink and black theme here too.
I like it.
Which matches my desk that you can't see. It's my whole desk because everything's pink and black. Problem. Okay, so when we ran the application, we got a hello world, and that's what we want. That means we were able to add it. And then we're going to copy and paste our packages. So if you're a .NET person and you're used to like using NuGet through Visual Studio, you can also use the CLI to add packages from NuGet. And if you don't do C# and maybe you do like Node, NuGet is like the package manager, like NPM is the package manager for Node. So this is going to go through and install all my packages. But I love Windows Terminal. Like I have so many different things just like set up for me, and WSL too. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time going through different animated background images for Terminal that are just like off to the side, just right.
Like the GIF backgrounds, like that kind of stuff.
Yep, exactly.
I need to do that. I don't have one like that on mine. Be cool. Sometimes I think it's hard to see. I used to have one. Do I still have my Cloud Shell? I used to have like a cloud. Yeah, I do. So on my Cloud Shell one,
that's beautiful.
You can see like the GIF of like the clouds. That's the only one that I have something cool like that on, though. I think all the other ones are pretty.
By the way, I think I might have found a setting that may have fixed my left channel only issue. So for those listening, let me know if anything sounds different, sounds better.
All right, so now I'm just going to do code dot to open this up in VS Code. So code is the CLI for VS Code, and actually I'm going to minimize that again because I probably want this later. And then we can be in our VS Code instance. Let me make this bigger, kind of reformat here. So we have our program right here. That's just the hello world that we saw when we ran it. And what do we want to do next? So next we want to add an app config. So this is going to handle our connection strings for our database, which is just XML. What does this say? You are building. Yes, I do want to add them. Why my coloring isn't showing up? Did I config? Yeah, I spelled it right.
Is there a message, an error message? Maybe we don't see on the screen. On the screen.
Oh yeah, there was one. Oh, you know what? It was probably under my graphic. There was like a little, like you don't have this extension type thing, but
got it.
Should be fine. So I am going to actually. Can we switch this so you can't see my screen while I add in the connection string information? Or I guess I could just delete the resource later too.
Just go back.
Like either.
Okay. Just go back to the two of us.
Because I'm going to now go add my endpoint and key from my resource in Azure into my app config.
Totally. Yeah. One of the other things about the live stream, sometimes it's hard to like make sure you don't share things inadvertently. Endpoints, URLs, just random stuff.
Yeah. No, it isn't like a lot of times I'll just show it and then after the stream I just go delete the resource. And so then then you can also see what it looks like. But this one I would needed to go to Azure. Okay, so we can flip back now.
All right, and we go back.
Oops, I did flip it back. There's a delay. There we go. Okay. Anyways, still showed it for a second if somebody really wants to be sneaky.
Let me get me out of the way here, and we'll just switch to this other view.
Okay. So the other thing that I thought was cool with the Cosmos DB is there's actually like a .NET app that you can download that has like a bunch of pre-built ways that you can interact with the SDK in the language of your choice. So you could do Node or Python or Java or whatever. So when I first did this, I was like, sweet, I'm just going to go download the app. Right now, you can't download it because I already created a database in this particular resource, even though I deleted it, I think. But I noticed that before I created a database, like right when I created the resource, there was a sample app right here that you can download. And so you can also choose your language. So that part's cool because it always helps to see an example when you're getting used to a new SDK or a new way to do things. And it's just like built in.
Yeah.
Cool. So the other thing is you can access it. This is our Cosmos DB right here. So like if you're used to going into like SSMS SQL Server Management Studio, it's now cosmos.azure.com and you can look at your data there. I assume there's got to be like a downloaded version, like a client version of this as well. But I've only found so far and used the like web portal version of interacting with the data.
That's a good question. Maybe we should look it up. Like a native Windows Cosmos. So you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Like you have your client for application for SSMS and for SQL to like do all your stuff, create your tables and all that. But this one, it's like through the web portal, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So this is an example of what I just did. So I created my my XML and my endpoint and my key, which I just grabbed from the keys in the resource here. I love the like little graphic animation that it does switch
I know,
to the
it's so fancy, right?
Super fancy.
Yeah, we adopted that from one of our other one of the other shows on the Microsoft Developer Twitch channel. Until we get our own branding, until we get our own cool.
Let's just make sure I didn't break anything. Although Yeah, we're good. So the other thing is that Windows or that VS Code has the terminal built into. So a lot of times I go back and forth between like my Windows terminal and the integrated one.
Same.
Whatever you prefer. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is add this client, the document client. And it's not found. Why? Oh, because I didn't add my usings. That's why. I think I missed a step. Here we go. Now it should be happy. There. Okay. So now we have our document client object that we're going to use to interact with our database. So the next thing I'm going to do is add in just this basic operations right after the main. So this is what I love about Learn modules too, is like I'm lazy and I like copy and paste. So I can just be like, I'm going to grab that. And then I can look into it and be like, okay, what did I just do? Like, what did I just create? So if you take a look, you can see that we're grabbing our connection information from the app config that we just entered and setting that to our client. And then we're instantiating our document client with our properties. We're going to create a new database called users. So that's the other thing, like you don't have to go in and create the database. Like you literally can just do it through the SDK, which was another thing that I was like, that seems weird. Because if you come from the relational database background, it just seems a little weird.
It totally does.
Okay, and then the document collection. So this is going to be the collection of users that we're going to create. So we're going to say we're going to be using the users database, and then we're going to create this web customers document collection. And then that document collection is where we'll actually create our users. And then I'm going to copy this in.
In the chat, I just put the link to the same Learn module that you're doing. This is the Create Azure Cosmos DB Resources in Visual Studio Code. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Cool. So
and it's part of a learning path.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
Part of
it's also part of a learning path.
Yeah, it's part of the build.NET Core app for Azure Cosmos DB. Exactly.
All right, so we're going to run this. See if I broke anything. But essentially what it's going to do, so like right now, if I go here, it's going to create my database and my collection. So it was successful. So now if I refresh over here, we should now see a database.
We've got a few comments and questions in the chat. One person says that in Azure Storage Explorer, you can work with Cosmos. See there?
Oh, really? I have Azure Storage Explorer. Thank you, helpful person in chat.
Grunf TNT. And another one of our viewers asks, when considering to pick unstructured versus structured databases, gosh, I can't talk today, what sort of questions should I be asking myself?
That is a good question. And I don't know that I have a really good answer, to be honest, because like part of it's just what you're comfortable with, but like scalability is supposed to be a lot better for like NoSQL because it's globally distributed. Out of the Cosmos DB is globally distributed, and so there should be lower latency, and like there's like I don't know, there's a lot of things to consider. But I like this doc kind of goes into like this one. I would say read through this, and I feel like at least for me when I'm trying to figure out what to use for my data stores or whatever I'm building, like I would read through this doc and then I'd be like, okay, which one makes sense? Like, where do I see it going? But then sometimes it's hard because you don't really know where it's going to go. I feel like whenever you're designing an application in a database, you're like trying to be a wizard and like foresee the future, but you can't, but you try to think of all these different ways where it would be able to scale the way that you need. And so, yeah, it's like kind of a hard question to answer.
Yeah, I was going to say that the same. That's also what Grump says. Is kind of depends on the data that you're storing. Like what are you working with? What problems are you trying to solve? I guess it's just like every other thing. It depends. But I think
Right.
there's a few big wins for Cosmos, and a big part of it is the globally distributed part.
Yeah.
And so it's more like, does that solve a problem you've got, than anything? And then also considering what kind of
Yeah.
data.
That
But
is a
it's a
good
good
point.
question. I mean, it's
Oh, and I see the issue that I ran into. So I have to delete this and recreate it. So when this gets created right now through the SDK, and this is an issue with the what I found with the Learn module. So I didn't have this issue before, but now you actually need to define the partition key. And if you don't, it does this underscore partition key, even though it is ID. And then when you try to create a user, it'll say your partition key is wrong, because our partition key, or what you can kind of think of it as your primary key, is the way that I've been understanding it.
yeah.
Is like how is the only thing that has to be like consistent. Like you have to have your partition key. So when the create for the actual collection is where you do this. So right here. And so basically what I just did here is I defined the partition key as ID, and I need to have another using. My Alt-Enter doesn't work in VS Code. So I don't know, for those people that use Visual Studio, when the little light bulb, if it needs to like have one of those usings, you can hit Alt-Enter and then just hit Enter again, and it'll automatically add the using to the top of your file. But for some reason, even though I have the extension for Visual Studio shortcuts in this tool, or in VS Code, at some point that some of them stopped working. And I think I just have to go in, because you can map all your key bindings like custom to whatever you want in VS Code. So I need to figure out why that particular one stopped working, because I really like that one. So like when I do Alt-Enter, it should tell me like what this light bulb wants. But anyway,
That's
so
annoying.
yeah, it is. And like a lot of, C# devs and a lot of people that do Visual Studio a lot, like you get really into your shortcuts.
Totally.
Like you use them a lot. And so it's, yeah. All right, so I'm going to delete this again. Oops. And recreate it so that because I don't think I can actually change type of data. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna delete this and then we're gonna run it again. So we're saying here is my partition key, and then we're gonna create it here. And so yeah, when I create that collection, oh, I'm like, where this looks weird here. It's because it's like supposed to be over here. It's wrapping, but not like Cardi B. All right. So the other thing that I've noticed in this portal today, every time when I was playing with this earlier, I hit delete, it like times out, but it actually works. So I'm not sure what's up with that. So let's refresh and see if it actually. What's that?
I've been saying that a lot lately. Just about everything.
Is it really? I didn't know that.
No, like when something's not working. So I don't know what's up with that. 2020.
All right, let's run this again. See if it actually completed. It looked like it completed. Okay. And now let's make sure our partition key is right. So I don't know if something like changed where before it used to, there. So now we have /ID. Not need that, or default differently. Like maybe it just used to default to /ID and now it defaults to /_partition key. And that's why the issue is. But yeah, so either way, we should be good now.
Sweet.
So we created a database and a collection that is now empty. Excellent. Through our CLI. I just think that's so cool.
Yep. That's kind of one of the fun things about the Learn modules. Like sometimes I'm a little surprised by what you can actually do, like even without an Azure account.
Yeah, right. And this will actually create a sandbox environment, so you can go through this Learn module, from my understanding, without like actually creating an Azure account.
Right. Which is good, because I don't know what the price of Cosmos is. Although it came way down. I know for a long time it was a little bit high, but they've come way down on their pricing.
It has, and they even have a free level now too.
Yeah, that's right.
Where they didn't used to have a free level.
And I want to say I haven't done anything with it, but everybody I've talked to says that it's like plenty for just, basic development, trying to understand. You get plenty of space and throughput, ingress, egress, all that kind of stuff for the purpose of understanding what is this thing.
Why is my highlighting not working on this? Oh, because I forgot the CS. I'm like, what did I do? There we go. That looks better. So again, we need Newton Soft. Oh, I need my shortcuts. Every time I have to like click and click, it's just no. So these aren't happy because we have to create these classes still. So right now I'm just going through and I'm just creating the different classes that we're going to need to create our users. That's what I'm doing here. And there's like a shortcut for duplicating too, but I don't know what it is. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to show you too, is that there is a calculator now. So like if you go to the, yeah, I was like looking at this Cosmo DB. So capacity calculator, and then it'll like tell you how much it thinks it's going to cost. So when you're thinking about what to use, that's another thing. Like we didn't even really talk about that, but that's another thing you think about when you're getting your data together, particularly if it's like a side project. Like you don't want to spend a bunch of money on something you're just playing around with. So there is a free version now for, playing around with. And then also there's this like calculator so you can see like, well, what do I expect to actually spend if I decide to spin one of these up and play with it? But if you're new to Azure, you do get the $200 credit too. So that's nice. But I haven't played. Perfect. Yeah, it is, because like that's always the thing when I'm playing with new stuff. I'm like, what is it going to cost me to spin this up? When it's like your own stuff, it's like the cheaper the better. Like when it's like your home stuff, I guess it's always probably cheaper the better. But if it's coming from my wallet. Oh, cool. All right, so I'm just kind of doing some of this busy work of creating some classes for us here. Unused. Oh, and I should say, well, let me create this last. Oh, wait, no, I did. This goes in the main program files. Let me put that there. And then I'll show you one thing I want to point out about C#. If you look at the user, you'll notice these JSON property attributes. And essentially, that's when this serializes this to JSON. It's going to use this instead of last name, because obviously, like in JSON, you usually use, lowercase and uppercase. Was that Pascal, right? I always forget the Pascal casing. And then when you have uppercase on both, which is like more of like the standard naming convention for C#, you want that, and you want to have those like consistent throughout your different experiences. So that's what this JSON property attribute is doing.
Makes sense. The camel case spores.
And the ID wars. I actually did like a poll on Twitter, because I was like, I wonder if like there is like a preferred way like for ID, like if it has like one of them won over the other, just like in general, because I always am like uppercase I, lowercase d in C#, but in in JavaScript, I'm like lowercase both. And like, I've actually had meetings about this. And I'm sure other people have been in meetings about the naming convention for ID, or is it uppercase both? Which I think that one just lost. Like, I don't
Uppercase
see
both.
that anymore.
Huh, yeah.
Do you see that anymore?
No. Yeah. ID in general, I've just always, I don't know, felt should be capitalized, but I'm also not a developer, so I don't have these types of conversations as often as you do.
You don't have to fight about naming conventions.
No, well, I mean you do, but not as much. I feel like John Calloway says I was ID for years, but coworkers finally broke me down. Now I'm I, capital lowercase d.
All right.
That's another thing too. Is it depends on where you work and your coworkers and like the culture that's already exists someplace probably before you got there.
Yeah, and then like if legacy systems are always like, I feel like more ID uppercase both. Like I think that used to be the more common way of doing it. And so it also I think depends sometimes on how long you've been a developer, what your favorite language is, and all of that kind of stuff. Like so I just think it's funny, like only developers I feel like could talk about ID capitalization for that long.
Yeah. Search and replace, all lowercase to all uppercase. It's like dropping a bomb.
ID for life. I'm old. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, so let's see here. So now we just created this create user document. So this is what we're gonna pass in this user that we're gonna create. And then we are going to actually create this document in our document database, right? So let me add this and then I'll kind of talk through what we just added.
Okay.
So where's my basic operation? Here it is. So those are just our JSON represented users or documents, and we're just having, why is this like this? This should be nested more. It's kind of hard to see. Let me just fix this. Usually on save, it like fixed the formatting. I don't know why it didn't save it as much there, but just to make sure it's readable for. So create user document if not exists. This is what we're calling. So in our basic operation, it's going to check and see if our database exists, and it's going to create it if it doesn't. It's going to check with the collection, which those we know they created because we already created them. And then I'm going to create these two users. And they're going to have this nested information for their new order history. And then we're going to call in our create user if a document doesn't exist. And so you can see here that in this, we're defining both the database and the collection that we want to use. And then we're sending in that JSON object. So here, you can see that it's going to check and see if it exists. And then if it doesn't, it's going to add it. And then it's sending in that partition key.
Great.
So I save everything. Let's see. I haven't broke anything yet. Did I break something? Created the user.
Boom.
And created the second user.
Created user one.
Okay. So now we've created both of our users. So if we go back and take a look at our document database over here, we should be able to see them.
Mashiko777 wants to know, does your teams still use SQL?
Yeah, I mean, there's teams use all, you mean like as in Microsoft? Like is teams as in the teams at Microsoft or as in teams team?
I know. Word teams means a lot around here. I'm guessing just development teams.
So
the teams that you work on, or any of us really.
Yeah, like, well, in cloud advocacy, a lot of times we're creating kind of like different demo stuff and things like that. So you can kind of use what you want to use. And I do a lot more like AI stuff. So like I build a lot more at Microsoft machine learning models, which I'm interacting with databases, but I'm not necessarily setting them up for like an application development thing. I don't know. What about you, Jason?
Yeah. I haven't used SQL forever. not for any particular reason, other than just a lot of the databases and stuff that I've been working on are so small and easy to. I don't know, like it just hasn't been a use case for most of the stuff I've been working on. But it's still alive and well and doing really pretty well. It's nice to be part of the portfolio within Azure that you can spin it up. But there's a whole managed SQL thing, so. Yeah, I haven't used it in a long time. And in fact, it's kind of sad. I don't even know if I could write like a good SQL query right now because I shouldn't say that because KQL, Kusto query language, I have to do a lot with that still, and they're very similar. Have you played around with Kusto?
I don't know much about it. What is it?
It's how you query like logs and system infrastructure stuff.
Okay.
Within Azure Monitor, within Log Analytics, all of the different things that are available to you within there. KQL.
Okay, I've used it then.
Yeah.
It's called KQL?
Yeah, it's short for Kusto query language.
Okay.
Kusto is in Jacques Cousteau.
Well, like that. Did I do that right?
Spelled differently.
Oh.
KU.
Oh, it's probably a
Yeah,
C.
no, that's right. KUS. Kusto query language. Or query, yeah.
See, like, I love data.
Not
There's so many things about data and using data and accessing data. Like, you could just talk about it forever. And there's always more to learn about it.
Yeah.
So I've used this once.
Key query language here. But Kusto maybe that's more of an internal term as far as Kusto goes. But yeah, KQL and SQL aren't too different. But it has been a long time since I've messed around inside of SQL.
Honestly, it was for me too. Like, because I hadn't.
I think once I started like doing more open source things and like MySQL, you could spin up and tear down and free, and it's open source. And it was just at that point I had less use cases, but that was also because I wasn't working inside of a business anymore.
Yeah, I think it depends. When I was doing like full stack .NET development, it was always SQL. And then one of the projects I was using Entity Framework. And so when you do Entity Framework, you actually don't write, you do it all in LINQ. So then you're not even writing your SQL, which like I really like SQL and I liked writing it. So I preferred Dapper when I was doing development, but I don't know. I go back and forth where like sometimes I really like Entity Framework and then sometimes I'm like, let's just straight write ADO and which when we get to the querying part of this, you can just write your SQL queries right in with the SDK, which I thought was cool, which reminded me more of Dapper if we have any C# people on here and they've used Dapper before. So
we've also got the question, do we know anything, +1 for Dapper, but do we know anything about partial document updates? I don't know anything about this, but I was just about to pull up the API docs for Cosmos, see what it might say in there.
There is. So do you mean like when you just need to update a property on the document, like a user document? Is that what they mean?
Let's see.
That
was like, Grumpf TNT? Yes.
Yeah. So the replace, which was confusing to me because I thought it would be like replacing the full record. But from my understanding, when I was looking at this earlier, replace would be, because now you have the update whole document. Yeah, so I think you actually can, hang on, I think that's on the next step. Let's go back to that because,
okay.
Well, or hang on. Do I have that up? No, that's the query. This is one of those things where we can learn together.
Exactly.
Did you find a good doc on it?
I put it in chat. It's the Azure Cosmos DB REST API reference, which I don't think that's.
Yes, that's exact.
Is that what you're looking for? Oh, okay.
I think so, because I think in there it's going to give us like all the different calls that you can make through the SDK.
Yeah.
Well, no, maybe that's still not.
Let's get.
There was a link in here. Okay, I'm gonna have to come back. So I thought up here there was like this is what I was thinking of. So like in here, like so there I think it's replace is what we want. And if you go in here, this has what it does. So replace document async. the updated document to replace the existing resource. So that I don't think is right. I wonder if it's upsert. Reading docs together.
I'm trying to think of a clever name for Upsert as a startup like business that uses Upsert in the name. Actually, just the name Upsert sounds like a startup.
It does, just on its own, and it can be like whatever you want it to be. Although it would be cool if it was like some sort of data startup. I feel like the boring part of programming.
We only upload to the cloud. You can't have it back.
So I don't know if I'm still clear on this now that I'm reading through this. Like I would think upsert would be like an update or an insert. Like that's what it sounds like to me. Like I'm either going to update the record or insert the record. Right. But I thought when I was reading about this, because I had the same thought that like replace, I thought when the more I read about like replace document, sounded like it would also update a property, and you could like specify the property in the ID, and it wouldn't like, it's not like going to wipe out the existing document, was my understanding when I read about it before.
Okay.
Replace a document. This is the same spot. Is it? No, wait, this is different, isn't it?
ShipShoot says it sounds like
oh, now merge. I'm in Java.
Hmm?
Or is it just the Java AP or SDK documentation? Yeah, I think that's what it is. I would say maybe confirm. Do we have in the Learn module, are we going to do that? So we've created. And then next we're going to read from it. And then replace. But the thing about replace is I don't think it's replacing the whole document.
Yeah.
But then how would you delete a property? Like you can delete a record. So to me, it would make sense if it was replacing the whole one.
Yeah. I don't know. We might have to look that up later.
So we'll update a user record to account for a change in their last name. So I think when you do this, like if you see.
But is it a complete replacing of the whole document?
Like maybe you have to get the full document and then update the property and then. So replace document, database name, collection name, the user ID. So this is that partition, I think. And then updated user. Oh no, there's the partition key. So that's the user ID. Yeah. Oh, so I think that, well, let's wait till we get to that so I can like dig in. Cause like sometimes it's hard. I like want to click on things and I can't because I'm in the docs. So we'll play with that more when we get to that particular part. But maybe there's a way to just update a property versus replacing the document. Or maybe just best practice with document is to grab the full thing and replace the full thing.
Could be, if it's the only way for now. Doesn't sound very efficient.
It doesn't, but then at the same time, like document retrieve, like it's so much faster because I worked on this one database that was so large, like there was like so many joins. And so like a query just to like get your object that you needed would take forever because it was just like all the joins and it was so complex, right? But like with document DB, like it's all one. So like, does it even really matter if you're grabbing the full document versus just updating grabbing it and updating the one property? Like, I almost wonder if it's not even like an issue once you get to this, because it's that whole like still thinking relational, like a relational database, but like it's not. So it's
Stop forcing it to be a relational database.
Let it be what it wants. Okay. It's a free spirit. That's what I'm learning.
Stop putting it in a box.
Yeah, you can't put document DB in a corner. Just wants to shine. Okay, so read documents. Where are we putting this? We are putting this after write console. Okay. So I mean,
Mashiko,
read's
we
pretty
think it
simple.
sounds complicated too, but I think we're realizing we're overthinking it
Yeah, I think we
in
are.
most
Like, I
cases.
think that with an a replace, like, I think part of the operation is to get the full object and replace it with the updated property. And that is an update, is
Mm-hmm.
kind of what I'm thinking, um, from what I read. But like I said,
Yeah.
fact check me.
We have our own idea of crud that's been burned into our brains.
Right. All right, so now we are going to read the user and then we're going to run. Okay. I feel like this needs to be bigger.
And we have, just as a time check, we got about 30 minutes left, so plenty.
Okay.
But wanted to update you.
Yeah, I think that we might not get through like everything, but I think even just now, like if this was your first experience with document database, I feel like you would have, or with Cosmos DB and NoSQL and that kind of stuff. Like I feel like we've passed a lot of the first barriers and broken our thinking to rebuild it, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's what we do in tech. We just build things or break things to rebuild them differently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mashika was asking about Cascade. I'm guessing maybe the Cascade database, but I don't know much about that. Is that an Oracle
Yeah.
thing? You have to tell us more, Mashiko.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm looking at the chat here to try to see an update on Cascade. Oh, I think he means like a cascading event.
Mm.
I remember something like this. No, it's a query in SQL. Yeah.
Okay. Cascading. Okay. Cascading.
Yeah. All right. So now this is just going to read. So then we're saying we want this database, this collection, and this user, and that will go into read document, and then we're creating our URI, passing in those properties, and then it's going to write out the user ID. So if we go back here too, I was playing with some of the querying. So like the first time I tried to do this, like because it's a string, if you do like ID1, you get nothing because it started a string. Uh-oh. Do we break something? We have an error.
Oh boy. Now it's going to get exciting.
So let's see. Oh, it's trying to create an ID. Entity already exists.
Mm-hmm.
So why is our create if not exists not working? Isn't that what that method is? It create if not exists, or does it try to create it every time? Or did I miss? Hold up. Let me go back here. So we didn't do. Is there supposed to be a delete? No. Okay. So we did that. We ran it. The read document. Read user. But yeah, so basically, it looks like if I just comment out the create, it should be fine.
Okay.
So.
Or yeah, the ID's not hard coded somewhere, is it?
So it's create if not exist. It is hard coded, like right here. But basically, like if it tries to create this user, it should check if the user exists before it tries to create it. So is my check to see if it's existing, is that not working?
We've got a question from Chip Shoop that says, are there transactions in Cosmos DB? Tell us more what you mean by that. What kind of transactions?
You mean like a query transaction, or what kind of transaction?
Hum us a Cardi B song.
What about the Cardi B song?
During the silence. Well, we can
Yeah,
like we can
that's what we need right now is Cardi B.
ship sheep. If you've got more, you can share with us. Put that in the chat. Otherwise, what, are you going
I
to just
think
cut that code
I think
out?
he's talking about like transact SQL where like you have your transaction here. Like I'm not sure if that's what you mean, but like there are stored procedures and like there's triggers and like that was the thing that I was curious about too, is that you can actually do like a lot of those SQL-esque things within it. Like I'm trying to see if I can find the docs where I found all those concepts. So is it here? So I think that's what you mean. I don't know if you want to add anything additional, but if that's what you're thinking about, like just transactional querying, then yes. And you can still have your stored procedures and call that. Oh, like a rolled back transit. I see. Okay, now I know what you're talking about. Now I know what you're talking about, but I don't know that you can do that. Like, which I used that a lot when I was working with complex. So it's like where you create a transaction and then you can decide if you want to commit it or not. Is that what he's talking about? So like if I do a query to like delete or change something, and if I do it wrong and it's going to screw up the database and it's bad, I want to be able to roll that back. And that is a really good question.
What is that? Just called a transaction in general, or a type of transaction? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the keyword that you would use in SQL is like transact, and then
Right.
then you'd like commit, if I remember right. It's been a long time since I used one of those, so it took me a minute. But yeah, so I'm looking over here to see if there's anything in here like maybe I should look up like rollback. Actually, that's why. How to revert or roll back and update.
It's always on Stack Overflow.
Yeah, how do people live without this?
I know.
I believe the
How did
answer is
people
no, is
develop
what this
code?
person. That's kind of scary. Like there's no way to roll back. Scope to a single partition in a single container, meaning you cannot update the document in different containers or even different partitions within the same container as part of a single transaction. But I wonder if this is something like you're not like that's actually brings up another question. Like if I want to update like a bunch of records, like where all the things that I played with like Cosmos now is like I'm just updating like one record, but like when you're doing SQL and you have large databases, you definitely do things where you're like updating the full.
Or at the very least, you'd like to see what the results of that would be before you make it happen.
Yeah. And yeah, it looks like the answer is no, which is like another one of those things that's like feels so wrong when you come from a SQL background. So we'll have to do like a follow-up to one of these in like 2 or 3 months. Like once I just saw the chat, they said YOLO. Oh my gosh. It is. This is the YOLO database. Like don't screw it up because
you can't. Maybe that's the whole thing. You can't.
You can't screw it up. Oh man.
It's kind of no, I think I just think of it like it's how I treat my garage sometimes. Just throw it in the garage. I'll deal with it later. Like that could be, I don't know, all kinds of just camping gear, junk, whatever, empty Amazon boxes.
The other thing is like if you just think about like it's like you just throw the gear in and just get it when you need it. Like, but I know they have big systems on it, so there has to be ways to do like backups. I mean, I'm sure there's ways to make sure that your data is like safe and secure. Like it's probably just different than the way that we would do it in a transactional way. But I think we should do like a follow-up on this in like 3 months once I've like fully like I've just started getting my feet wet. So these are like really good questions that I'm like haven't thought about that yet.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's But just
I
like
don't know
other
about
things.
You,
like,
but I'm not going anywhere. We can make this happen. I think.
You're what?
I said I'm not going anywhere. I think we can probably make this happen. Do another live stream.
Yeah. And maybe we could even tap someone on the team. They'd want to come since they would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I can think of a few people.
That would be kind of fun. Okay. So I think the reason is that my get is not finding the entity, or I'm sorry, the document. And when it's coming back, it's trying to then create it, and it's saying this ID already exists. So I think that in my read, like, because I'm lazy, instead of trying to fix that, I'm just going to comment out the create because we've already created our users. And then I think this will work. Create user document if not exist. And that too. And then I think if we run it also. Suspense. User one. Not read. So I wonder if when I changed how this is created. Okay, so.
Have we gone into the Storage Explorer to look to see what's in there?
I have it open, but I'm like, I don't know. Like, where is it?
Yeah. Or even, what about in the browser?
Oh, I bet it's in here because this is the subscription that I'm under. So maybe there's like a Cosmos thing in it. There is.
There's definitely Cosmos here.
And then I can see, oh, that's cool. Okay, this is exactly what I was thinking. Oh, and here you can see stored procedures and triggers and user-defined functions. So those are very, like if you're SQL, like that's all, like I know that
feels
stuff.
Familiar, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And then inside documents, does it show anything?
Yeah. So we can see.
Okay, so it is putting a few records in there.
Yeah, so it created the records, and I think the issue is it's looking for, I think the read is reading on maybe the wrong ID.
I say records. I don't even think that's the right term, is it?
Documents.
Yeah.
So like each one of these, see, even new document, you could add one. Like we could just add one that's like free and like save it. We just created one.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's cool.
It's not a record.
This is cool. So this is how this would be like, it's still like, can you query in here though? Or can I just like click through? There's a filter. Oh, you can. So if I do like c.id equals like 1. How do I run it? Did I just hit enter? I don't know what I did. How do I run it then? Apply?
Probably.
Did I do something? Just like apply nothing and see if they all, yeah, okay, so I did something wrong. Isn't it c.id? Oh, I forgot the where. The where is not part of it. See if you have, this is why it has the helper text. Yeah. So c.id equals, I know someone's over there like double quotes instead of single.
Yeah, and they point out you have to have the where.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, they did? Okay. I was like thinking that was part of the like, because I didn't have to write select from either, but I mean, it makes sense that they want to add the where because you might not be starting with where. You might be starting with something else. So. Yeah. Okay, join. Okay. That's cool. So you can query.
Excellent. Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Because we can see it for sure in the browser, right? We haven't been over there in a while, but.
Yeah. So like the same kind of UI here where you can write your query and run it.
Yeah.
And navigate here. So yeah, that's cool that it has that option. So like I had only been using this, so now I know that it's in the Storage Explorer too. That's cool. I wonder, can you like favorite it? Like you can favorite the other stuff. Or can I, what do I have? Because right now I have like storage accounts favorited. And I really like that because then there's like a lot in here and I don't have to go like look for it. Can I add to quick access? Cool. So now it's just right here when I log in. Very cool.
Look at that.
Love it. Actually, I want to click on the stored procedure thing too. It's like create stored procedure. What is this experience like? Is it going to give me an editor? Sweet. So it gets the collection. Very cool.
Nifty. And it looks
So
like
not
a new version too. They're at the top in the banner.
I know I need to update, but I don't want to do it while we're streaming. I haven't been in.
We've only got like 13 minutes left.
Okay. Well, maybe we should figure out what's up with this. So in the read user, I wonder if it's because it's using user ID. Didn't I set like ID as the partition key, not the user ID? So maybe that's an issue. Let's try that.
Grump says if you use the up, what's it called? How does it pronounce?
Upsert item.
Yeah. Then you don't have to, or it doesn't have to check if it exists.
And that worked. So that's why the copy and pasted code had the partition key as the user ID instead of the ID. And so it's also why it couldn't find it when it, so like in the find user update or create if doesn't exist, that would be why we got our error, because it was looking for the wrong key.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I wonder if when I changed the partition key, if it wanted me to use the user ID, but the user ID I thought is like a user string name. And it's like, why would I use that as my ID? Yeah, like the user ID is the like a username almost. So I don't know why, but I mean, you can make the partition key anything you want. All right. Because it's the YOLO database. That's like what it's going to be called in my head now. I love it. Okay, so we just read a user document. Cool. Now let's play with this replace. Ooh, we're to the replace part, or we were talking about earlier. So it wants after read. And then we're going to update it. So let's take a look at this now that we can see. So replace document, we send in the database, the collection name, the user ID, the partition key, which we changed to ID. And then, so I wonder if in this like operation, it gets that, because at no point when we do a replace, do we have to like actually call, get the object, update the property, and then write it. Like when you're thinking about SQL, that's kind of how you would think about it sometimes. Like if you're gonna, but this, it's like, I'm just replacing and here's what I want. I'm sending in the ID and then also with the user object, with the updated user object. And it's not going to replace everything. It's only going to update the last name when we run this, which we'll see. I'll run it. So we're going to update the last name to this. Okay. Yeah. So I think it's just part of the replace. It is like an update.
Yeah.
But you don't have to think about like grabbing and, yeah.
Grump says upsert basically does insert if it doesn't exist or update if it does.
Okay. And that makes sense. Like reading it, I love a name like that. That's like so descriptive. And like, I would think this is what that means. Like
it's a good
you don't even, yeah. Thank you for confirming that. Okay, so this .create user document if not exist. Okay, so let's go to my basic operation. And comment. I guess, I mean, we could still read it, but, well, I guess, yeah, we can read the before and after output.
Mm-hmm.
So let's read it before and after. Although I believe this is only logging the ID. But it was last name that was changed, right? This is the right syntax. It's been a while since I've. All right. I think I did everything. Let's run it and see what I broke.
YOLO C# for YOLO DB.
YOLO C#. Yeah, you have to do YOLO C# because it's a YOLO database. It's the only way.
That's how they understand each other.
All right, so
ShipShoop says, I think upsert came from Oracle, where the same concept in Microsoft SQL is the merge operation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so it worked. So we had, this was the original last name, and then we did the replace for this last name, and then it read and wrote it out again. And so that's it. And now, so if we go back to our query here, we should see we still have the full document, but then the last name was updated.
Yeah.
So replace is like an update, and you don't have to worry about like getting the object. So I think if you actually want to like wipe it out, you would like delete it and add a new one. Like if you wanted to, like, cause like what if I wanted to remove the shipping preferences? I mean, I don't know why you would want to, but like, I'm guessing you'd have to.
Oh, if it's not, yeah,
like,
I see.
Get it, delete it, add it.
Right. Yep.
Or maybe if you do an upsert, actually, no, it sounds like you could probably do an upsert removing this record or this part of the record.
It just takes out that whole section?
I would think if you did an upsert, it would. Now with a replace, I don't think it would, because replace is just like.
Well, we've got 6 minutes. Can you
okay.
Want to try it out?
Doing an upsert? Should we go just like straight to that? Should we skip delete?
Well, yeah, you're right. Maybe I don't want to derail you here in the last few minutes.
No, it's okay. The only thing that I just like, we totally could, is I wanted to show this part because I love this part because it reminds me of Dapper.
Oh yeah, okay.
And so like I know someone else in there was like Dapper++. And so like if you go into like adding queries and link queries, you can actually do that with Cosmos too, which is again is something that's like really comfortable.
Right.
So if we want to just do this simple query one, I think that would be cool. And then if we have time, we can go, we'll go to the docs and maybe we could do like an upsert too and kind of play around with that. We'll see. Back to a simpler time. Sorry, I was looking at the chat. Oh, I just want to post it back. Okay. I don't think I missed anything. Let me just go back quick and make sure I didn't miss anything else that we need to do. I don't think so. Oh yeah, no, we just skipped delete. That's all, which is fine. We don't need to delete our users. They get to exist. So yeah, that's cool.
So we delete the Cosmos resource.
Yeah, until right after this. So thanks to existing for like another 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna execute query. Which I guess I can just. We're just not going to talk about that this is all going in the program CS. We're just not going to talk about that part. I'm just going to go with it.
Best practices.
Exactly. Best practices when learning. You write it bad first and then you fix it later. Okay. So we want to call this then in our basic operation.
You don't have to fix it until the security team sees it.
Exactly. All right, so I'm gonna get rid of this and this because we just want to read from our database and our collection. If we go in here, see if I need to change anything. we're setting query options. So here's a link query, it looks like. So it's a user query. And then you're just being able to do where last name equals this using link. So that will be the first one that runs, and then it will print it out. And then it's going to also look at how you can do that with SQL statement with transact SQL. User query, and then it will list them all out. So I think, does this user still exist? I think that was the user 2. Let's just make sure so we actually get a result. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and it's just gonna read it out. So let's see. I don't see any partition key because it's going by last name, so we shouldn't have that issue on this one. So red user 1. That's not what it's supposed to print out the user, isn't it? Oh, I need to press an AT. Okay, so running link query, cool. And then SQL query, and this is our result. So it's nice that you have the option too, like to choose which way you want to query the database.
Totally.
Like if you're someone that likes link and hates writing SQL, like you can do that. And if you're someone that prefers SQL, then you can do that too. Because YOLO, because you can do
YOLO DB.
We got to talk to marketing about this. I think this is a good one. Okay, let's look at it like an upsert example. I don't think there's any in this one. I think this goes into like stored procedures, which I don't think there are really any, like, I think that concept's the same. Like, I don't think there's anything different there. So let's go back to, where was the one that had like the nice setup of all the, although we have 3 minutes, do we need to do any sort of like?
Yeah, we probably ought to start wrapping up here.
Okay.
So, yeah, actually, I'll just bring it back to the 2 of us, and we're definitely going to have to, we already knew this going in, schedule some more in the future. But what else should we know about what you got going on and just life in general as we say goodbye here?
Let's see. So you can follow me on my Twitch channel if you want to, which is at Cassie Breviu, Twitch TV/Cassie Breviu. And there I do more, I'm doing a lot of like TypeScript and JavaScript and WebVR stuff, like I was saying earlier. I also do some AI stuff there as well. I actually don't do a ton of data stuff, but I might actually, because I want to play with this upsert thing, and because there's like some really good questions in here that like I'm curious of like what is that result. I might play with this a little bit more on my stream. So if you follow my channel, then maybe we can play with this a bit more. But yeah, I guess I don't know what else I have going on. I have some talks coming up and.
Follow you on Twitter and Twitch, and that's kind of where we're hanging out mostly these days.
Yeah, so, definitely.
And then here in, is it not next week, but the week after, I think, or coming up pretty soon, we'll do another live stream together where we are going to play with some AI. And Cassie and I are both aspiring hacks on the musician front, I would say, but enjoy talking and conversing over all things music related. So we thought we'd mix that in with a little AI, and still kick around the details, but tune in for that. That should be fun.
Yes.
And what's that?
Oh, I just said on the 20th, right?
Oh, is that what it is? Yeah, that sounds right.
I think so. I think it's the 20th.
That sounds right. So yeah, come back here on the 20th, and we'll same place, same time. And with that, thank you so much, Cassie. This has been fun. Way to spend the afternoon, and we will definitely do it again real soon. Thank you to everybody on the stream, everybody in chat. This has been a real fun conversation and great questions. And we'll see you again real soon. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you later. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks for the help in the chat too, guys.